Well, we're coming to you from our studios here at Prime Media in Eyewitness News newsroom, to be more specific, and I'm joined with a guest this evening, someone by the name of Stuart James Sharnick. Now, his name popped up this afternoon, just a few hours ago, in the Madlanga Commission during the testimony by the head of crime intelligence, Dumisani Khumalo. Stuart himself has been labeled as a serious convict or multiple offender with serious convictions against his name. He's alleged to be a close protector of the suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner and that of Shadrack Sibiya, and we saw his pictures featuring before the Madlanga Commission this afternoon, as well as a picture of him sitting behind Shadrack Sibiya when Sibiya testified before Parliament's ad hoc committee. Stuart, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
I think first and foremost, let's just get your reaction to those pictures. I understand it was your license picture from your vehicle, from your car license, your driver's license, that they pulled up and they showed at the Madlanga Commission this afternoon. But following that picture, we had bold text in red showing that you had multiple convictions against your name in that of carjacking, theft, and so forth. Talk to me about your initial reaction when you saw your name and your face beaming across social media and across media outlets across the country this afternoon. What was your initial reaction?
Well, look, I was kind of surprised when I saw it happening because I know General Khumalo very well. And I didn't understand why he didn't explain to the Madlanga Commission that he knows me as well. So when he came out painting me with the paintbrush that he did, it surprised me, particularly about the convictions, which I'm not disputing, but I'm disputing the factual basis in which he presented it. So just to clarify about the convictions that he spoke about, the 18 convictions is part of one case. I have one conviction pertaining to those cases, and those cases are from 2011 and 2012. I was given a suspended sentence and a fine to pay. I've served the suspended sentence and I've paid the fine. So in our South African constitution, I'm a free man. I have no other cases that are pending against me. I'm not involved in crime syndicates. And furthermore, General Khumalo knows that. So the fact that he's chosen to mislead the Madlanga Commission leads me to believe one of two things. He's either trying to run a narrative or he's desperate because everything that they've been painting previously is not tying up.
Let's talk to those 18 convictions because you've briefly explained and provided some context around them. It's related to one case that dates back to 2011 and 2012. Can you provide some clarity around that? Because I think for the layman, having 18 convictions that pertain to one case, it doesn't really make that much sense. Can you expand a little bit about what those convictions relate to?
So in the time period, the 2010-2011 period, myself and a number of business people were involved in buying and selling vehicles. However, we hadn't done the due diligence in checking on how the vehicles were acquired and the system used to register them on e-Natus. A whole host of police officers were arrested. There was a whole host of businessmen that were arrested, and some of us took plea and sentencing agreements to nip it in the bud and close the chapter. It was a lack of oversight on our side. We should have done our due diligence, but there were a number of people at the same time period caught with the same scam. However, the charges did, in the competent verdict, reflect theft. Some of them were linked to carjacking, but that itself didn't necessarily mean that we were hijacking cars the way in which General Khumalo tried to portray it today, that every month we were stealing cars or hijacking cars. I'm sure, as you can see, I'm very easy to recognize, and it doesn't really make much sense what he's talking about, but obviously it's the narrative that he was trying to drive home today.
I want to talk a little bit about the personal relationships that you claim to have with General Dumisani Khumalo, because you say that you know him, he knows you well, and he should have spoken to you about this prior to dropping your name at the commission. But firstly, I want to talk a little bit more about these cases and where they were committed? Because I believe most of the cases were in KZN, but there's also another case pertaining to the Northwest. Can you clarify that for us?
Okay, so the KZN cases are the bulk of the 18 that he spoke about in terms of the convictions, which all fall under one operation, which was basically one case. It's one sentencing agreement with 18 charges. It's not 18 different cases that were run simultaneously in 18 different courts throughout the country. It was centralized, it's one issue with one sentence. What he alluded to the public is that in the Northwest, the case was subsequently withdrawn, and we have no charges in the Northwest, nor was I convicted of anything in the Northwest.
Let's talk about your relationship before I come to the relationship that you have with Shadrack Sibiya, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. But I think more to the point right now that what you've spoken about is, what's your relationship with Dumisani Khumalo?
So it's actually strange that it slipped his mind to explain how he knows me. I was introduced to General Khumalo, Dumisani Khumalo, in Mr. Shadrack Sibiya's office, working on an issue pertaining to a mass murder that had happened in the area where I'm from. And in that instance, I had worked with him a lot. I know a number of his members that are operational based in KZN. I know them by name, surname, and cell phone number, like I know him. We've met regularly at his office, and I have all my cell phone records to prove that. So Dumisani Khumalo did not recognize me from facial recognition investigations that he's done. He knows exactly who I am, and I've spoken to him many a times on the phone and in person and in his office.
So let's talk to those cases that you were meeting with both General Khumalo and Sibiya in Lieutenant General Sibiya's office at the time. Where and what do those cases pertain to? Because you say they relate to a place where you're from.
So I'm from an area called Richards Bay, northern KZN, and we had a spate of murders in a specific time period. And the murders were aimed at business people through the business forums, and it was linked as well to some of the killings that the PKTT eventually started investigating. And when General Khumalo saw me at the ad hoc committee in Parliament, I'm sure it sent shockwaves down his spine. Hence, he tried to discredit me before I could actually unpackage the evidence that we have pertaining to some of the killings under his watch with the PKTT.
Stuart, could you expand a little bit on the cases in Richards Bay? Because I'm familiar with the area and the region itself, and I know that in past testimony, Richards Bay has come up in the Madlanga Commission, and I think it also took a lot of people back because there were allegations that the presidency was involved with instances or case where Richards Bay Minerals had units deployed to safeguard that specific company. Is anything you're referring to got to do with that?
So the testimony from Madlanga Commission was trying to portray that the killings were taking place within the mine itself, which is not true. The majority of the killings in Richards Bay were happening within the town, and no arrests were being made by local SAPS police officers, to a point where I think that police station is sitting with about 150 cold cases, if I'm not mistaken. We had no other alternate but to engage with national SAPS to get task teams to come in and assist us. And that's where our paths crossed, particularly with Dumisani Khumalo, the PKTT, with Madlanga Commission that was making the complaint about, and the national task teams that had come in to assist the community. Because a series of the murders were families. There was a triple murder where a family was executed. 2 weeks later, another 2 people were shot and killed in the suburbs of Richards Bay. The one that took place 200 meters outside of crime intelligence offices, where 5 people were gunned down in the morning, and nothing was done about it from the local SAPS police station. Hence, we then went to national. I was one of the people that had engaged with then General Shadrack Sibiya, who assisted by getting a task force from national to come and intervene with the killings that were taking place in our area.
You refer to we. Does this suggest that it wasn't you alone that engaged with officers at national? Were there other people involved?
Yeah, there was a number of people that were involved, particularly from the business community, as the murders had been linked to government contracts as well as extortion cases that were taking place in those areas.
So you paint this picture that you've essentially, and you know all of these top cops, in that of Shadrack Sibiya, Dumisani Khumalo. You've had engagements with Lieutenant General Madlanga Commission as well previously.
No, I haven't.
You haven't.
I've spoken to General Fanema Simula on more than one occasion. I've spoken to Dumisani Khumalo, Lieutenant General, Crime Intelligence, and Shadrack Sibiya. And out of the three generals that I'd spoken to, the person who seemed to get the most done in terms of the arrests, in terms of the deployments, in terms of the disruptives, was Shadrack Sibiya, way more than the province or the local SAPs, including Crime Intelligence.
So I think that the next question would obviously be is, what's sort of your relationship with Shadrack Sibiya? Because General Khumalo is essentially alleging that you are his close protector, a bodyguard, essentially, to Shadrack Sibiya. And in some instances, I think when you appeared before the ad hoc committee in Parliament, when you were sitting behind General Sibiya, he alleged that you were impersonating a cop, if I've got that correct. What's your response to those allegations?
Well, those are blatant lies. As he rightfully said, there's accreditation for you to go into Parliament. And on my accreditation, it was written the legal team, as I have in-depth knowledge of some of the evidence that's going to be unpacked in the ad hoc committee as well as the Madlanga Commission. Now, General Khumalo knows that. He also knows my proximity with Deputy National Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, especially because the majority of the arrests that were initiated in our area was due to Shadrack Sibiya's intervention with the local business people in the area, and it went over and above what General Khumalo and Lieutenant General Madlanga Commission were doing with the PKTT. To put it bluntly, National came in and arrested more killers, more murderers than the PKTT did in our area. And that's a static fact. That's a statistician's fact.
What's your relationship with Shadrack Sibiya? Because from what Khumalo was trying to paint, or what General Khumalo was trying to paint, is that you're his bodyguard. What's your direct response to those allegations?
Well, he's simply misleading the commission. I've never been his bodyguard. I'm not a bodyguard. I'm not in the security industry. And I simply know Shadrack Sibiya from the cases that he assisted, particularly in our area. And every time we call him, he's always open and available to assist us. Wherever we needed his assistance, he's always assisted us. So when I saw that they had taken his close protectors away and they had taken the vehicles away from him, I then availed one of my vehicles, which is the Toyota Hilux that you saw, which is B6. It means it's bulletproof to semi-automatic carbine rounds, meaning it can withstand bullets from an AK-47. And I'm the person who then borrowed him that vehicle to travel around while he was trying to source his transport and get more protectors, which was declined by the National General anyway.
So in that footage, or those stills that we were shown at the Madlanga Commission today, where we had basically footage from across the city of Joburg capturing both your Toyota Hilux, but then also a state white BMW following close behind. Was that you driving the vehicle, the Hilux, or was that General Sibiya driving the vehicle?
It was General Sibiya driving the vehicle from what I saw on the evidence being presented. I'm not sure myself. I wasn't in the vehicle. Once I handed over the keys for him to utilize the vehicle, he is free to do what he wanted to do with the vehicle to ensure that his life and his family's lives are protected.
So how long did General Sibiya have this vehicle in his possession? Does he still have it in his possession? Have you still loaned it to him and is he still using it?
He's still utilizing the vehicle. He was trying to arrange a secondary vehicle for himself with bulletproof, because we know the modus operandi of the people that we're dealing with. And a number of people have been assassinated and assassination links to them. So I advised him to utilize a bulletproof vehicle until he can get himself another bulletproof vehicle and a backup vehicle.
When you say the people that we're dealing with, Stuart, are you referring to specific people or are you referring to units and task teams within SAPS?
Well, look, I'd raise the issue for the public to decide. I mean, if you deploy the National Task Force to children in the middle of the day and the National Intervention Unit armed to the hilt, clearly there's an agenda and a motive behind that. If you wanted to fetch a laptop and a cell phone, you could have simply gone there with a van and one member, and even if requested, it would be handed over. The fact that the PKTT is being deployed with firearms, rifles, balaclavas, task force, and National Intervention Unit is definitely a tactic to intimidate and most probably to execute more if they get the opportunity to.
What do you know about the white BMW? Because we saw CCTV footage today of this specific vehicle with a certain Sergeant F.E. Nkosi that had arrived at the home of, I don't know if we should refer to him as Santon businessman. He was Santon businessman previously, but now he can be referred to as a murder accused, Katiso Keti Molefi, in Sandhurst. And we saw Sergeant Nkosi arriving in this white BMW state vehicle and then making off with this white paper bag, which we don't know what was contained in the paper bag. But that visit lasted almost 15 minutes, if anything. And we see the same vehicle following your vehicle, your Toyota Hilux, which General Sibiya is driving, from what you tell us. You've loaned him that vehicle. Do you know if Sergeant Nkosi was the one that was following him in all those footage or stills that was presented before the commission?
I can't confirm that. I wasn't there when the driving was taking place. I wasn't in the van, nor was I in the BMW. But what I do know is, from the times I've seen the BMW, there's been no Sergeant Nkosi driving that BMW. It's a different member that was there, and he's the same member that was in Cape Town in the ad hoc committee. So,
Stuart, what do you make of everything that's come out so far? And I think we're dealing with quite an unprecedented thing in the country. By large, it's the court of public opinion that's driving narratives on social media. And in some instances, there's allegations that news outlets are pushing certain agendas. I know from our side of things, we're just trying to afford everyone the right of reply like yourself, given that what's presented are mere allegations. Your convictions are obviously something you're not disputing. You confirm that you have got those convictions against your name. But what is your general opinion on everything that's happened so far from July 6th, when we see Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi come out, make these allegations against the criminal justice system, not in totality, but more specifically in Gauteng, and everything that has kind of rolled over thereafter? It's been a kind of spiral effect, and we've seen the commission being formed, the ad hoc committee being formed. And what's your whole thought and comment about what's happening currently in South Africa regarding the criminal justice system?
my honest opinion is that our democracy is under threat. For the court of public opinion to supersede the justice system makes no sense. If you feel you have a prima facie case and you are Lieutenant General, you should open a case accordingly. If you are aware of crimes that are being done by crime intelligence and by prosecutors that are linked, you should take the proof and open the case like every other South African citizen. But to create speculations, allegations, go onto public platforms, dress up. It's all a facade. And I think once the other side gets to speak and present their evidence and facts, people will start seeing the truth and start understanding that there's more that meets the eye. What's taking place in our country currently is unprecedented. It doesn't make sense. And if you are familiar with the criminal justice system like I am, charge the man, give him his day in court, and let him prove his innocence.
Do you not concede that there is some alarming and disturbing things that are coming out of both the Ad hoc Commission and the Madlanga Commission, or the Ad hoc Committee and the Madlanga Commission, in that of allegations of certain aspects of the criminal justice system being captured by business people, by alleged Big Five cartel? I mean, there's some damning and serious allegations that have come out. What's your thoughts on this, given that you seem to know a little bit about the criminal justice system?
When Lieutenant General Khumalo was asked by Judge Madlanga if there's only one syndicate or syndicates, he openly said there's only one syndicate, which is a stark contradiction to the SIU's claims on the same day on national television where they said there were 3 syndicates. What's become extremely evident is that Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo, and the National Commissioner are in one camp, and they're utilizing state resources to fight internal battles that they have with other members. If they have proof of a person's wrongdoing, then open a case like every other South African. There's no need to go onto public podiums. There's no need to brandish firearms. There's no need to tell the country we're at war and have psychological warfare battles. If you have proof, open a case like every other South African.
My final question to you, Stuart, is, and it would be based on what you've just said about the generals that you've just mentioned, in that of the National Police Commissioner Fani Masimola, Head of Crime Intelligence Dumisani Khumalo, and KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi being part of one camp. Do you then concede that you possibly are aligned to the other camp that we've heard of, that there may be an allegiance between the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, the suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, and other names like that of the National Head of Security and Counterintelligence, Major General Feroz Khan?
Simply put, I'm not involved in either faction. I'm not a SAPS officer. I've never claimed to be a SAPS officer. If I see something wrong, I'm not an informant. I'm not registered. I've got nothing to do with anything within SAPS. But if I do see something wrong and I can assist, as a standing citizen in South Africa and as a patriot to the country, I will definitely assist. However, what's taking place is clearly a showdown between the generals in the highest table in the country, and I'm definitely not there at all, nor am I a part of any Big Five cartel that they're talking about. I simply assisted with my vehicle when I could see that a general was under siege and his family or his life was at risk. And I have multiple vehicles, and I assisted with the vehicle that's there. Hence, it's still in my name, and I'm out here transparently saying that is my vehicle. Lieutenant General Khumalo knows who I am. He knows where I'm from. He has my number. He could have phoned me at any time. He is simply utilizing the platform to run a narrative, trying to link us into an imaginary cartel, which he's fictitiously put together to try and clear his name from his own criminal cases that he's facing. Right now, the man that's actually facing criminal charges and who's out on bail is General Khumalo, not General Shadrack Sibiya. Neither am I on bail at all.
Thank you for your time, Stuart. Thanks for coming through. And that's where we'll have to leave it this evening. As you heard, it's a showdown between the generals at the highest table in South Africa, and it's been playing out in front of your screens, on the radio, and in news publications across South Africa. And there's still much more to come in the coming months. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is expected to file a report to the President by possibly the end of the year, that 3-month report, before another one in 6 months' time. For Eyewitness News, I'm Orrin Singh.